Welcome back, guys, to a slice of news, where I cut you off a slice of news. New York Representative Jerry Nadler has done what seemingly no one on both the Democratic or Republican side has managed. At 78, he has decided to not seek re-election and retire, citing a need for change and a rise of younger voices in the Democratic Party, which, for a man nearing his 80s, is surprisingly progressive and something that his fellow old Democrats could look at as an encouragement to do the same. Now, it may be a bit too much to hope that this will be the beginning of a surge of the old guard finally relinquishing their positions to a newer, vibrant, more progressive side for the Democrats. But it's something, and in a time where it seems politicians do not want to heed the voice of the people and to stand aside for more younger people. It's nice to see at least one Democrat making the right decision and stepping aside when it's obvious that being 80 years old and still serving in government is not what we should strive for, and I think it goes without saying, not what the founding fathers would have wanted, though I think to them, living until 80 alone was probably a novelty, and the idea of serving in government up until your 80s probably seemed inconceivable. So I think trying to frame it as what the founding fathers would want probably is irrelevant. But still, seeing Jerry Nadler make this announcement that he will not be seeking re-election is a pleasant surprise. I mean, it could be less of a conscience and more because he sees that he was facing primary challenges that would bring that exact issue up, that he is, nearing 80 years old and should be stepping aside anyway. So I guess it was sort of a I quit before I get fired situation. But you like to see it. You love to see someone at least seemingly having a bit of reflection and realizing that his time in government has come and gone. He's been serving since 1992, so he's had quite a few decades in Congress, even serving as the head of the Judiciary Committee. So his legacy is already quite set. So him stepping aside for someone a little younger and hopefully more progressive is certainly understandable and commendable. And it would be a even more pleasant surprise if more took up this banner of leaving while old and allowing younger people in the Democratic Party to take up their seats. But I think that may be wishing for a little bit too much at this point. So this may be more of an isolated incident, but it's a rare bit of positive movement in the Democratic Party, and we certainly could use every tiny bit we can get. One thing Representative Nadler cited as his reasoning for not seeking re-election was the failure of former President Joe Biden's re-election. And I think, maybe the circumstances between President Biden and he are not exactly analogous. They are very similar in the sense that I think one of the key points against Biden was, of course, his age. I mean, of course, there was all that talk about, mental capacity and everything, but I think that it was more propaganda from the right than actual reality. And I think it was still accurate that, at his advanced age, it would have been advisable to step down. And eventually he did step down in favor of Vice President Kamala to become the Democratic nominee. And I think a lot of people correctly point to his taking so long to come to that decision, to not seek re-election himself and to pass it to Kamala, that hurt the Democratic ticket in general and her chances in specific, because it felt kind of we switched horses midstream, and that was very off-putting to a lot of voters, that they felt like they were not getting a fair amount of time to vet her as a candidate as they would if she had gotten the nomination at the beginning and President Biden had decided much earlier not to seek to be the Democratic candidate in the 2024 election. So it's good that there's a bit of self-awareness in that from the more geriatric members of the Democratic Party serving in the Congress, that, maybe they've had their decades of service and it has been lucrative and productive, and perhaps they've done enough and it's time for someone else that's not quite so advanced in age to take up their mantle and continue the Democratic representation in government. So we will see where this goes. The midterms are coming up, and if Representative Nadler is not seeking re-election, it will open the floor up to several Democratic challengers to take his seat. And who they put up remains to be seen, but one can only imagine that the prospective replacements will be a bit younger, and with that youth hopefully will come a bit less rigid and old thinking and a little bit more progressive and forward looking. But who we will get to replace him remains to be seen in this upcoming midterm election. But bottom line, it's a positive thing. And we should embrace every bit of positive news coming out of the Congress as we can, because there are woefully few lately. And I think that given the current political circumstances, there likely isn't going to be very many. So we should embrace and cherish every single bit we can get, even if the most positive thing we're getting is old man Democrat not trying to retain his position and allowing someone else to take it for him. So that's it for this episode. Your host, Mr. Slice, has cut you off one more slice of news, and until next time, when I cut you off, another slice of news.